Hello again. You may be asking why I'm saying again, and that's because this first podcast I recorded once already, but I did not push the button. So, trying it all over again. Full disclosure, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, and this isn't as easy as all of the professional people that we like to watch make it look. I have no idea how to do lighting or make sure my kids aren't crying in the background. I don't know how to edit or upload, so maybe no one will ever see this, but if you do, then I've figured some things out, and I'm extremely surprised and probably very proud of myself and patting myself on the back. My name is Christy, and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Mama in a Manse. I am the mom of 5 kids. They are 9, 7, 5, 2, and 5 months. And in the earlier recording, we had a fun little introduction where each kid got to come in and say hi, but it is past bedtime now. I tried to record during the day when there would maybe be some daylight because I assumed that I would have better lighting then, but mom life. It's now after bedtime, and I'm making do with what I have. Truthfully, probably wouldn't have been a lot better. It's Nebraska, and it's November, so light's never great anyways. Either it's blowing the wind so hard that your hair flies off, or it's foggy and moody and muted and fun. So apparently we live in Nebraska. We live in rural Nebraska. My husband is a second career pastor, so we went off to seminary and then came here after his graduation, and we've been here about 2.5 years. I've been knitting since I was pregnant with my 7-year-old, so about 8 years now. I was looking at Ravelry, and I joined Ravelry in September before he was born, so it's just been a little over 8 years now. I love it. It is pretty much what I do for all entertainment. Kind of obsessed with it, and I am kind of starting to get into designing and figuring things out. It's a little bit harder than I expected. Just trying to take an idea and figure out how to put it on a piece of paper. I'm not very technologically savvy, so all of this stuff is very new to me. One of the main reasons that I decided to let me back up. So as far as my name goes, the Mama and the Manse, I explained the Mama part, but a Manse is a clergy home in the Presbyterian Church that the church provides. Some people might know it as a parsonage, basically a church-owned home that their clergy lives in. So that kind of speaks to who I am, other than knitting. Mama and preacher's wife. Let's see. So this is a knitting podcast, and the main reason that I'm going ahead and doing this now, I kind of always wanted to do it. I am a person who enjoys watching and listening to other podcasts that have 2 people in them more than 1 person. I have gotten a little bit more used to 1 person and really like it. But I still like the back and forth that people have. But I decided to go ahead and do this because I'm extremely bored. I had surgery on my hand this past week. I just had like a spot in the back of my wrist that I thought was bony, and it's been bothering me for like 3 years. So I finally decided to go ahead and go to the ortho because I was terrified that it was going to be like arthritis or something like that that would keep me from advancing in my knitting career. I say career. It's probably really a hobby, but it's what I love to work at. And I was very thankful that they said it was like a ganglion cyst, which they could immediately take out. And because I've had a baby this year, my deductibles are paid. And so, like a week later, I was having surgery from finding out about it. I severely underestimated how much it would drive me crazy not to be able to knit. Um, that's been very difficult for me, and we will talk more about that later. But just the everyday stuff is harder than I expected. Obviously, this is a short term injury type of thing that was my choice. Lots of people have much harder issues to deal with, but even like changing diapers, you have to twist your wrist to close the diapers, and I did not expect to have so much trouble. Um, yeah, it's been kind of an interesting week, taking care of little kids and trying not to go insane and taking care of myself. I mean, truthfully, TMI, but even wiping is really hard. Try doing it with your non dominant hand and leaning the opposite direction. It's not as easy as you think it'd be. Anyways, all of that. So eventually, I would like to add in a knitting with kids section. I am not doing that right now because I was getting ready to teach my kids how to knit. I am teaching a class at Synod School, which is a like church camp for the entire family in the Presbyterian Church, and I'm going to be teaching a knitting class. And so I thought that it would be good for me to practice, like not yelling or cussing at people when I was trying to teach them. And so I decided I would try to teach my kids and my husband, and we got all the stuff for it. And it all came, and we were so excited. And then before we started, my 5-year-old broke her arm. And so we kind of put that on hold. She was very jealous and didn't want anybody else to learn. And so that kind of went in the wayside. About a week after she got her cast off was when I found out about my surgery. And so it just really hasn't happened yet. But in the future, I will be sharing some stuff like that. I think it will be very interesting to see how the kids at the different ages really take to knitting and what challenges we find. And truthfully, the kids are way too young, but have been wanting their own podcast channel. This is something on Christmas lists. And I am trying to head that off with you can be on Mommy's YouTube channel and watch yourself on video. And it seems to be working because they were super excited and went crazy when we recorded earlier. And so hopefully that will kind of like stop being such a big deal to them. Who knows? Anyways, so I guess I will just jump right in there. I'm going to share a couple of my recently finished objects, things that I really love here for a while. I'm probably not going to have any brand new finished objects for a while because of my hand. But probably my favorite finished object ever is my Kirsten sweater. How in the world did I get this so turned around? So the pattern for this is windswept, and it's really, really hard for me to figure out how to show this. It's very flowy. That's the back. It's very hard for me to get it into the camera. I will definitely be wearing this one of the times when I podcast, but the sleeves are rather fitted and they will not fit over my giant wrist at this time. This yarn is Cascade Heritage, and I'd had some 220 before and always have found it really scratchy and wasn't a fan of Cascade, so I kind of was like surprised that this was as soft as it is. But I absolutely loved this yarn. I bought this when we were visiting one of my friends, and that's why it's called the Kirsten sweater, because we were visiting her and it was the souvenir yarn that I bought from near her house, and so I've been calling it my Kirsten sweater. It's my very favorite. I pretty much want to wear it all the time, unless there's going to be like cat claws or something like super dirty because I don't want it messed up. The pattern is Windswept, and it's by Melissa Kemmerer. She is Melissa K Designs on Instagram. And I'm realizing as I start trying to podcast that you read these names all the time, but you never say them. And so I really have no idea if that's how you say her name. But maybe somebody can tell me if they know. This is a perfect, perfect sweater. It's great for everything. It looks great. I love it. I'll try to insert a picture. That's another thing I don't know how to do with it on. When I first finished it, that would probably show it off a little bit better. But yeah, it won't fit me right now. So the other finished item that I was going to share with you today that I finished recently is my worsted boxy. Oh, hi. Thank you. Thank you. You want me to talk? Okay. Okay. This is Isaac. Okay, go with Daddy. Can you go with Daddy? No. Yeah. This is my worsted boxy by Hohi Locatelli. It's in Malabrigo, the Anniversario colorway. I really like this sweater. I'm not 100% happy with it. There was a lot of pulling issues that I had up here, right at the chest area. Had it been like down lower or anything, it probably wouldn't have bothered me as much. But it really caused me a lot of issues. There were a couple of the skeins, I was alternating them. There were a couple skeins that were much lighter and much more blue than the other areas, than the other skeins, and they just grabbed onto each other. So I cut pieces out and I alternated every 2 and 3 and 4 just to mix it up. And it still had some. It's not as bad as it was. I ripped out about 6 inches of it. And so that's the yarn. I'm not sure that I like super love it. I feel like there's a lot of material in my stomach area that's not particularly flattering. I don't know if that's because it's worsted weight and so it's just going to be a more bulky thing. Also, I tend to wear nursing tanks rather than actual bras. I've never found one that fits great and doesn't give me a uniboob or whatever. And so that could be part of it, just my undergarments. But it's not the most flattering on me at this time. It's hot as well. I had my hair cut and I was wearing this, and underneath that cape, I thought it was menopause time because that was hot. Let's see. The other finished objects I will save for later. So moving on to whips. This has not gotten worked on this week. Because I think gauge matters and I'm not supposed to be knitting. But it is in this cute little project bag. I was invited to be a part of a local craft group, and they have a tradition of giving gifts to the other people in the craft group when it's their birthday month. And it just happens that the first time that they invited me to participate was the birthday month of 2 of the ladies. And so that was a pretty amazing surprise that they included me in that. And so I got a really nice pair of like embroidery scissors and then this handmade bag that the other lady had made. So living in this is this strange creature that is supposed to be a long line cardigan. There are cords over here that are stoppered, and there's ones with needles coming out of them on this side. And I don't really know what's going on. I think this is the back of the neck, and we're working on curving around on the shoulders. I think this goes on your shoulder. And so then this part is coming down to the front with this collar area. I've decided you are putting stitches on hold a lot in this cardigan, and I've decided you just gotta trust Tohi. She knows what she's doing. I may think something crazy is going on, but it's probably going to be amazing. It definitely looks like it in the pictures, and I don't think that she just like put a bunch of weird instructions in there to drive everybody crazy. So I'm going with that. This has not been worked on because of gauge, obviously. It's something that I obviously want to be very careful with. The yarn that I'm using is Chaotic Neutral. This is by One Twisted Tree, who is Prairie Girl Danny. And it is beautiful. I'm loving this color. It's going to be the perfect go with absolutely everything cardigan when it gets finished. The other whip that I have put on hold while I'm laid up from knitting is a shawl with quite a bit of history and a story. This is the Falling Leaves wrap by Dory Brown. It's not been blocked. You can actually kind of see it a little bit. It's not been blocked, but I did soak the yarn and kind of lay it out flat before I did what I'm going to tell you that I did. Because I was really concerned that this really dark was gonna bleed. And it's a really good thing that I put it in the water because it bled a lot. The story of this is that way back when, like 5 years ago, I bought a kit for a shawl off of like Interweave, and it was the first time that I really spent money on a pattern and yarn. And I was so excited, but when it came, I had ordered purple and I got navy. And I contacted them and they're like, sorry for the mistake, we'll send out the purple right away and you can keep the blue, which was an amazing bonus. So I spent a lot of time trying to find something to do with this. And I was not a very, I don't know what the word is, fancy knitter back then. Obviously, this was the first time I had spent like $20 on a skein of yarn. The pattern I ended up picking was the Falling Leaves, and it does call for like 600 some yards, and the skein only has like 420. And so I don't know why I thought that pattern would work for this yarn, but it's the one I chose, and I started it. And I actually started it when I was visiting my dad on his last birthday. And we had a big long conversation about how pretty it was. And I mean, it was bunched up lace. I mean, it wasn't that pretty, but he was so impressed that I could do something like that. And it just, there were a lot of memories that kind of went into this and spending that time with him, that when I realized that there was no way I had enough yardage to make this wrap something that I would wear, there were too many dad memories wrapped up in that, so I could not frog it. So what I decided to do was try to find a yarn to just put a big garter stitch middle into it. His favorite color was orange, and I really wanted to have orange in it, but I have a complexion that does not like the fire colors, and orange and I are not friends. And so I obviously wanted it to be something that I would wear, but that would go with the yarn and also incorporate orange. And I was able to, and I really wanted a speckle because I hadn't had any speckles yet, and I'm really loving the speckles. So I found this Malabrigo, or not Malabrigo, Madeline Tosh, and it is Gemini twins, and it has little speckles of orange, orange neon. There's a lot more pink in it, which is something that I do wear. And then it has navies and blacks in it as well, so that makes it really tie in with the yarn. And so what I have planned is just to make this big garter stitch middle so that I can kind of wear it around my neck. But I can still pull these sides around and show off this lace. But the softer stuff will be what's on my neck and will extend my yardage. So I knit this blue until I was halfway through the skein, and then I'm just going to town on this until it's long enough that I can do the other side of the blue, and then I will have my dad shawl done. Oh, and this is living in this little bag I got from Beach Dreams Bags on Etsy. She's SL Sliders on Instagram. I got a bunch of bags from her. I love them. So, another long story. I'm sure you're excited for that. So I was going a little crazy not being able to knit, and I had this project on the go in the van, and I was, sitting and waiting for my husband who'd gone into a store. I'm like, I wonder if I can just knit one round. And so I had these cuff down socks, 2 at a time, that I had in the van, and so I tried to do them. They were on magic loop, and I did one round, and it was very awkward. It was very difficult to hold onto the needles. The angle was just terrible, but it did make me feel better just a little bit. And so then, on the misguided advice of one of my Instagram and real life friends, she had broken her arm and said that if you shove a double pointing needle into your thumb hole that you could knit. So don't follow the advice of me or Jen, but I was like, yes, I must do this immediately. So I got some double points and I took these off of the needle, the magic loop needle, and put them on my DPNs. Those pink markers are marking where they were when I split them up so I could make sure that I kept them even, since before they were being knit at the same time. And I was going to try to do a few rounds on one and a few rounds on the other. But as you can see, I didn't get very far. I mean, it's like barely any. The gauge was just too tight for me to handle. I couldn't do it. I was having a really hard time, especially at the corners, trying to turn them and things like that. So I decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore. And these guys will just have to wait until I'm free to knit again for real. These are my swirly socks. These are a free pattern by Prairie Girl Susie from the Prairie Girls Knit and Spin podcast, which is audio. If anybody is looking for one, it's excellent. And I am knitting that in Knit Picks Felici, the dark side. So once I put my socks down, I had the brilliant idea that if the needles were just a little bit bigger and the gauge didn't matter, that I'd be able to do it. So I had already gotten the pattern for the pinwheel scrap blanket, and I decided to cast one of those on because, I mean, it's a blanket, so anything that's weird with the gauge can block out. Not going to be a big deal. And it is going swimmingly. I'm ready for the connecting piece to connect it right here. This pink and green color is one of the first sock yarns I ever had, and I don't even know what it is. It was, from a box store or Walmart or something. Might be Croy. I don't know, but I do have those socks, and they're wearable. They're not great. This is the first like luxury sock yarn that I ever bought. I think it has some silk in it. I was so amazed when I used this. The socks came out way too big. I can only really wear them around the house, but that's okay. We all learn. This is some Cloudborne that I used in a shawl this summer. These three are all Felicia yarns. I spent a lot of time this summer knitting socks. I knit one pair of socks, and then I would change the needles, and knit another pair of socks, and then change the needles again, and knit another pair of socks. I did a ton of vanilla socks. I did some Rose City rollers. And I finally found the needle that gives me a gauge that's a sock gauge that I prefer. I don't want something that's going to slide around. I want to be able to wear shoes. I have a hard time with my socks often being way too loose, and they just bunch up if I try to put them in a sock or into a shoe or something. And so I've really been working on that. The swirly socks are actually the first ones that I was putting patterning into after figuring out that ones are my magic size of needle. This gray is some of the Cascade Heritage from my Kirsten sweater. And then this is from a mug kit I got where you like knit the insert and then put it into the clear cup. This is some of the leftover from that. So I'm to this connecting part, but that is going, I thought I really wanted to have the ends woven in and that connected before podcasting and showing this, but I really think that the angles are difficult for me right now, and that it would just be better to wait rather than having something that was like more finished. Even weaving in the ends, I can't imagine that I could do that very well with my left hand, and the angles with my right hand would just be a nightmare, because I really can't do any kind of angles, even like typing on my phone or typing on the computer, anything like that. I thought I would have more. They said I would have use of my fingers, and I thought that that would mean I had more use than I do, and so things are just waiting a little bit longer. Truthfully, I'm not supposed to be knitting right now anyways. But anyways. Okay, so those are the whips that I'm sharing with you this time. I think we will move on to the stocking section. I was stocking a lot more patterns, but something happened today so that I'm not, and I will get to that in a little bit. Something I am looking forward to and really anticipating is Knitting Expat is coming out with her 2018 sock club, I believe on Friday, and I am super excited to try that out. I wasn't part of it this year, but I kind of paid attention and watched what people were making and her patterns, and I've done the pinwheel blanket and just really paid attention to her as a designer, and I think that I would really enjoy that, and just having kind of that like monthly pattern coming out I think would kind of be an inspiring thing to kind of go along with. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the other thing that's coming up that I'm looking forward to in that way is the Cozy Up with Stitch and Sisters are having a cowl starting January 1st of their new design where all the sisters kind of contributed what they wanted into this shawl. It's called My Sister Shawl. And I am very much looking forward to participating in that. I love that podcast. They are hilarious. I often find myself like psychologically analyzing them, which sounds totally completely weird and creepy. But I think it's so funny because Jamie is the oldest, but there's so much of Sarah that's the oldest, and I'm the oldest of 5 children. And so I see myself in both of them, and it's just the dynamic is hilarious. Because of that, it's like there's me split in half, and it's those two sisters. And Katie is just obviously the younger sister. She's so much quieter. But I did make a trip to the yarn store the other day, and I decided that I would accidentally buy the yarn, which is, there we go, for that shawl. You're supposed to have a speckle and 2 solids. I can't see. I'm not good at this, guys. So this one is pretty speckledy, but because it's kind of a subtle speckle, I'm going with it for a solid because I thought it looked really fantastic together, and all the yarn ladies did too. So I could change my mind. You know, it's like a month and a half away. So if I do, then those will grow up and be something different. That yarn is Ba La Jola, and they are the August 17, September 17, and Obsidian colorways. So that pretty much takes us straight into the yarn porn section. So, as I mentioned, my husband is a pastor, and we have lots of little kids. So we are not in a time in our life, financially or family-wise, that we will be traveling the world and trotting to all these new, faraway, awesome, exotic destinations. However, many people in our church are. And so after several of them have gone on these amazing trips, like dream trips that I would just love to go on, we got some baby gifts for the baby, obviously, from like New Zealand and Hawaii, and it was amazing. Like she has stuff from all over the world because people got her things. And so I decided that I would start asking people if I could like send them money when they were going on these trips and have them bring me back yarn. I've missed a few since I decided on this, but one of them did, and it was amazing. I didn't tell her anything to get me. I just said yarn, and she brought me back a few surprises. So she also brought, they gave her these little like pamphlets, which are in French. I don't speak French unless you're talking about cuss words. But this is like a mohair with like stellina in it, and I love the color. And then there is this bamboo and cotton. I keep moving things out of the camera because it's the opposite of the natural way. This is super silky and soft. I love this. There's 3 skeins of this. They don't have like tags on them. They just came with these papers, but there's 3 of those. Not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. And then both of those I was able to find on Ravelry and like add them to my queue and kind of figure out yardage and stuff like that from Ravelry. But the last one, it has this paper, but I couldn't find it on Ravelry, and I am struggling to figure out yardage. But the cool thing about this is, these are like nuts that they use, and it's completely naturally dyed, and they use these nuts and somehow dye this yarn. And the nuts make it blue. I don't understand how that's possible. But this is some lovely, like, mohairy goodness. And there's 4 of them. But I'm not sure how much yardage is in it. Look at all that fuzzy goodness. And I can't decide what to do with it. I kind of want to make like a, kind of like a tee. I think there would maybe be enough yardage for that. But I can't find a pattern that I really like. It's, you know, lace weight, really small. And so I kind of considered designing one, but it's mohair, and I'm really kind of afraid of knitting this and then trying to rip it out, which is what I'm sure would happen if I designed with it. So if you know of any really awesome like mohairy lace weight patterns that you want to draw my attention to, let me know. Because I'm kind of scared to design with it. I haven't like got up the nerve, but I want it to be something really cool and I want to use all of it. So I'm really kind of looking in that direction rather than like just like a little scarflet or something like that. Okay, so the next thing that I got that came in the mail this week is my very first loco. So I'm a person that really tries not to do things that everybody else likes to do. I didn't do the starting point. I drooled over them, but I didn't do it. And I haven't done the find your fade. I don't know, like when everybody started wearing skinny jeans, I like resisted for years. I thought that was the stupidest thing ever. I just try not to follow the crowd. I don't know why. But then the grocery girls came into my life. And they are the most excellent enablers. And Tracy made her Waiting for Rain out of this color, and I just absolutely love it. It is so gorgeous. Her coloring is a little similar to me, other than her hair. But I think we'll see. Because also, Waiting for Rain, while I love it, I don't normally wear things up around my neck. I usually try to have a pretty open neckline. I just do not like things really close. Like, scarves don't really bother me, but like the necklines, if they're tight around my neck at all, like I cut them all out of t-shirts and, you know, weird stuff like that. Thanks, Mom. And it has a turtleneck on it, but I am planning to make the Light Rain. Did I say Waiting for Rain earlier? That's a shawl that I have yarn for. I meant Light Rain by Hohi Locatelli. So I got this. I love it. I can't wait. And I also got some Grocery Girls. Now, even if I didn't love the Grocery Girls, this is green and pink and teal. Or aqua. Those are like my favorite colors, minus purple, and it's on gray. There is nothing not to love about this yarn, and I'm so excited. There's not a plan for what this is going to grow up to be, but it's going to be something super beautiful. Okay, so I have some other yarn, but I'm going to save it for next time because I doubt that I will be having any more new yarn between now and the next time that I dare to do this. So something that I did want to talk about is today there was the hashtag Get Your Yarn Wishes Granted, and it was the most fun. It's like being Santa Claus to adults that you don't know. Yarn adults. And I debated whether to get involved in it because, like I said, I don't like to follow the crowds. Anyways, but then I decided, you know what, I'll do it. And I am just now kind of getting into buying indie dyer yarns, and I don't have a lot. Most of them are pretty newly purchased. Like the Hue logo just came like 2 days ago, Friday, something like that. And I have a whole bunch of Prairie Girl Danny's yarn that I got in the last month. And other than that, I only have like a couple skeins, and so there was nothing that I really wanted to part with that way, and I don't really have a lot of sock yarn weight scraps even to give out, so I went with patterns, and it was just so much fun. I had wishes up, and they were getting granted, and so now I'm like waiting for packages, and I have no idea what's going to be in them, and it's so much fun. I don't know how long it goes on. It's hosted by Tega Hillard. That's another name that I've never heard said out loud, so I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. If it's still going on, jump on and see if there's somebody's wish that you can grant. It was amazing, and it was really cool to see all these people helping each other out. Not really helping each other out, but like blessing people, I guess, would maybe be a better way to put that. I don't know why it's so hard to go into your own wish list and buy a pattern, and why it's so much easier to go into a complete stranger's wish list and buy them a pattern. But it was so much fun. So check that out if it's still going on. I wasn't on Instagram last year when it happened, but it's definitely something that I will do next year because it was amazing. Okay, so I kind of already talked about a few of the podcasts that I really like. I might bring up a few every week. I already mentioned the Cozy Up with the Stitchin' Sisters. They're a newer podcast. They've only got like 30 some. I really enjoy them, and they're dynamic, and they're Canadian. And for some reason, being Canadian like gives you a lot of like yarn cred, and I really like the Canadian podcasts. Another one on YouTube that I was going to mention is Hey Sister. I know that it's pretty popular and a lot of people know about it, but if you haven't, check it out. Actually, when I get off of here, I'm going to be indulging in their next new episode. I'm so excited. And then a lot of the ones that I started out listening to podcasts probably back in March and listening to audios. And I really love when I can sit down and watch a Grocery Girls or a Knitting Expat or any of them and spend all that time sitting, and I usually knit, so like I don't sit with my face plastered to the screen, but I do sit there. I don't have a lot of time to do that. I have a lot of kids, and sometimes you're supposed to adult and do things like clean or run errands. And so for those times, which is most of my life, I prefer to listen to an audio podcast. And truthfully, a lot of these are really popular. And so it's probably not any new news to anybody, what I'm saying, but you should definitely check out the Prairie Girls. They are my favorite local celebrities. They might be my favorite celebrities, but they don't think they're celebrities, but they are to me. They have a really fun dynamic and friendship. Imagine Landscapes is two Canadian sisters. I told you I really like the Canadians. I love to listen to them. She Can Make, also Canadian. It's a newer podcast, and they're having episodes about every week. So it's something that you can kind of always get into. And they also do like a crafting for kids section, which is interesting because it's not something that you hear on a lot of other, and it's kind of like that hook that they have that other people don't. And of course, the Knitmore Girls. I think that one of their last episodes said that they're coming up on their 10th anniversary, so everybody should know about them and be listening to them. And then one of my other favorites is Unraveling with Greg and Joey. I really enjoy like the male perspective, just out of the blue. And they're pretty fun. Not that much knitting gets done sometimes, but there's always some kind of joke about somebody not wearing pants. I am wearing pants to podcast, but they are sweats, just FYI. And that's pretty much all of the yarny content that I have. I was just going to have kind of a little section at the end to share a little bit about Manse life in the past week. I've already talked about having my surgery this week. That's kind of made some things a little bit more difficult. The baby chose to have a poop explosion one night while her dad was in a meeting, and I could not get her undressed or hold her legs up to be able to wipe her bottom. That was quite an adventure, having my 9-year-old assist in that. I felt kind of like we were doing surgery and, you had your, spotter or something. I got my first diva cut this week. Don't judge it by how it looks right now. For anybody who's not a curly girl out there, a diva cut is basically where they take your hair and they cut each individual curl. So my hair was down to here. I got it all chopped off. My hair kind of freaks out when I cut it. So that's part of why it's not very curly. And the other part is I only have one hand to fix it, and I scrunch my hair to fix it. And also, trying to wash my hair with one hand, not very easy. So that's been, I like it, but I think I will like it better when I can use my hand and actually, fix it, and it has kind of a chance to relax and stop feeling so crazy. I think that's about it. It's been kind of a full week just on those little bits of life have taken up a lot. If I can figure this out, I might try it again. I don't have any clue what I'm going to be doing next or how to do this. So we'll see. We'll see if it works out. If you do see this, then thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. So get out those sticks and strings and make some magic. Bye. Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hi. Look how cute you are. Where's your baby sister? There she is. There's Violet. Mwah. Oh, thank you. Mwah.
I'm Mama. I'm listening. I'm listening.
Baby Violet.
And this is Mama. This is Mommy. I'm Mama.
Everyone, I am
I am.
This is my big brother Isaac.
This is Mama. This is Mama. This is Cutie Violet.
They can't even see Violet. And I let them see.